At dawn on the icy tarmac of Falcon Ridge Base, the wind scraped sideways, slicing through wool and resolve alike. Frost clung to the railings like a warning. Boots stood lined in ordered rows, 152 trainees rigid under the muted blue light, their breath clouding into temporary ghosts. I was one of them. Captain Eric Dalton's voice cracked across the silence like a hammer-splitting bone. "You are not worthy of this uniform. Take it off." I didn't move. I didn't blink. The cold had settled deep in my spine by then. My muscles registered no shiver, just the weight of standing still under 1,000 eyes. My tank top clung damp to my back, sweat evaporating too slowly. The regulation gray fabric showed nothing except for the ink. My tattoo. 31 names. Coordinates. Lines converging to one center. Lucas Kane. Dalton didn't wait for obedience. He stormed forward, boots crunching on the frost-hardened gravel, and yanked the chevron from my chest. It fluttered to the ground beside my boots, unnoticed by everyone but me. No record. No branch. No clearance. "You're a fraud," he said, voice dripping with contempt. "This is Falcon Ridge. You don't belong here." Still I stood. The only sound was the hush of wind, and then clatter. A thermos rolled off the upper command platform, hit steel, and bounced once, loud as a rifle crack. All heads turned. There, under the observation canopy, an old man stood frozen, one hand outstretched toward where the thermos had been. He was in civilian clothes, brown coat, wool gloves, VA pin, but his eyes were locked on me. Not my face. My back. The tattoo. His lips parted. A breath, then a name. Ghost 6. The word cut through the compound like smoke in dry air. A few trainees shifted. Some glanced my way. Dalton's jaw set. "She's not just a contractor," the old man said louder now. "She saved more lives than you ever commanded, Dalton." He was trembling. Not with cold but urgency. Recognition. Guilt, maybe? I knew the look. He raised his phone. "Get General Kane." Now he said into the receiver. "We've made a terrible mistake. 3 months earlier, I had stepped onto the cracked pavement of Falcon Ridge with a laminated gray badge and a cardboard box of office supplies. No one saluted. No one looked twice. Administrative temp, the assignment paper read. Logistics B. Temporary clearance. I signed in at the East Gate under the same name I had used since disappearing, Elena Rowe. They put me in the annex, the forgotten building, where condensation crept between fluorescent lights and peeling posters of Army values hung at odd angles. I was given a desk with one working drawer, a monitor from 2009, and a rusted chair that leaned left. Around me, crates of munition reports, supply manifests, PT logs, gear check disputes. Paperwork meant to bury time. I worked quietly, quickly, always stayed late. I didn't ask questions. I didn't correct anyone who called me Ms. Rowe. I didn't mention the burned scars that ran beneath the sleeves of my button-down or the jagged, raised skin where a shoulder rig had once worn grooves into my back. I didn't tell them about Duskwall. No one mentioned it anyway. The mission didn't exist. Not officially. Not on any grid Falcon Ridge operated on. I had watched the Pentagon lock the files. Label them irretrievable. Then stamp one word in red ink, lost. But 5 operatives came home. Not supposed to. Not expected to. Not wanted to. I was the reason they did. Now I was listed as a civilian contractor with a keyboard, a badge, and a fabricated CV. In the halls, I nodded to captains and NCOs who never met my eyes. I made their broken printer work. I balanced their shipment logs. I refiled their damage assessments. No one looked closer. Except Dalton. Captain Eric Dalton ran Selection Company Charlie, an elite prep cycle for the most brutal special operations track on base. He was tall, lean, spit-shined, and vicious in ways that didn't show up on reports. A good talker. A political climber. The kind of man who knew how to punish without leaving fingerprints. He hated civilian staff. Especially women. Especially the ones who didn't defer. When he found me running a supply route manually because the server was down, he didn't ask why. He called me sweetheart, told me to sweep the vehicle bay, and made sure my PT access pass was rescinded for non-compliance. I didn't flinch. The next week, I found the bay duty had been logged as voluntary. Paper trail clean. Then came the toilet inspections, the bunk swaps, the scheduling errors that assigned me to conflicting duties. I logged it all. Every shift in my schedule. Every email scrubbed of its timestamp. Every surveillance video that flickered into static for 20 seconds when Dalton walked past my desk. I marked it. And I waited. Because the thing about men like Dalton is they always think they're alone. One night in the gym, off hours, lights half on, I caught the sound of boots behind me. A presence that didn't belong to the cameras. I was mid-set, benching the bar silently when he approached. You weren't always logistics. I didn't look up. The voice was calm. Older. I knew it by tone. No, I said. You ever gonna tell me why you're still here? He asked. I racked the bar and sat up slowly. Wiped my hands on my shirt. Met his eyes in the mirror. Because they're still here, I said. Chief Warrant Officer Mark Heller. He ran cybersecurity audits and language ops. Officially. But unofficially he knew what I was. Or enough of it. He saw what others didn't. The off-grid gym sessions. The patterns in my system taps. The habit of stepping out of frame just before security patrols crossed my section. He didn't press me. He just nodded. A quiet recognition. Not of authority, but of purpose. Because I wasn't hiding. I was preparing. Then came the letter. A worn envelope slid under my office door on a Friday evening when most of the building was empty. No return address. Just a single folded page inside. Private Naomi Fielding. Deceased. Age 20. Falcon Ridge Selection Week 3. The letter was from her mother. I tried everything. They wouldn't tell me what happened. But she left this, the note said. Attached was a copy of Naomi's suicide note. The real war wasn't overseas. It was here. I sat with the page in my lap for a long time. I remembered a girl. Quiet. Blonde. Quick on the range but shaky on obstacle drills. I had seen her once, on my way to a secondary mess inspection. She was sitting on the curb behind the training barracks. Hands in her lap, eyes vacant. I knew that look. Isolation protocols. Breakdown cycles. Dalton's signature. The mother had tried every channel, base command, congressional inquiry, VA ombudsman. Each door had closed. Eventually someone somewhere whispered the only name they thought might matter. Rowe. If anyone still watches, it's her. I didn't know what terrified me more. That they thought I could help. Or that no one else had. The pattern sharpened after the Fielding letter. Dalton didn't just keep me busy. He kept me visible. He began assigning me to morning muster, even though I had no platoon, forcing me to stand at attention while he led PT roll calls for trainees who didn't know what to make of me. Civilian badge. No rank. Standing still beside them, silent. He added inspections of barracks I had no reason to access. Gave me storage keys that led nowhere. Scheduled meetings that would vanish from the system 10 minutes before they were to begin. Some days I spent 12 hours crossing the base in endless useless loops. One morning I found my access to the PX suspended. The next, my name had been removed from the base cafeteria roster. It was subtle, cruel, psychological warfare done with a scalpel, not a hammer. He was isolating me, like he had done to Fielding, like he had done to others. But unlike them, I knew what it was. I recognized the pattern not from doctrine or HR policy, but from years embedded deep behind enemy lines. They break you by erasing you. And so, I documented everything. I created a decentralized chain. Hard copies hidden in portable battery drives. Audio logs masked in encrypted PT footage. A sequence of triggers that, if activated, would release the truth to every oversight committee with the clearance to understand what they were seeing. Each file was tagged with 3 letters. DFL. Duskfall. It wasn't about vengeance. Not exactly. It was about completion. The promise made years ago to 5 broken men I dragged from a blood-soaked perimeter at a desert compound no one remembers now. You disappear for us, they had said. So no one buries the truth. I did. For years. But ghosts don't stay quiet forever. Then one night the file came. A transfer marked urgent, slipped into Logistics B's queue by accident, or perhaps intent. The packet had a red seal and a cipher code I hadn't seen in years. I cracked it in 30 seconds. What lay inside made my skin crawl. It was a report. Sanitized. On selective resilience trials conducted under the Falcon Ridge Accelerated Prep Program. Psychological stress conditions. Solitary containment. Sleep reduction protocols. And a casualty list. 12 names. No next of kin informed. Cause of death, undisclosed due to classified operational evaluation. I cross-referenced the names. 3 were listed as AWOL, 2 as unfit discharge. The rest, just gone. It was the last name that stopped me cold. Fielding, Naomi A., buried under Phase 4 review error. Not even a footnote. I printed it out and locked it into the box I kept beneath my bed. The box with the coordinates. The medals I never accepted. The only photo of Ghost 6 ever taken, blurred and scorched at the edges. I knew then I was done waiting. I sent a request, covert, indirect, to an old handler in Maryland. I asked for 2 things. A ping on General Malcolm Kane's operational schedule. Confirmation of whether my coded tag, row/dfel, was still active. The answer to the second came as a single message. Green light available. Awaiting your go. The first answer was quieter. But it came. Kane was scheduled to inspect Falcon Ridge's winter training cycle in 3 weeks. That gave me a window. I began wearing my old boots again, resoled and quiet. I began eating alone in the far end of the mess, watching patterns. Shift overlaps. Surveillance blind spots. I marked the time it took for a whistle to echo across the quad. Measured the footsteps from the upper command platform to the assembly line. I prepared. But so did Dalton. He must have sensed it. The shift. The steadiness with which I moved through his obstacles. The lack of reaction. Bullies feed on reaction. When he doesn't get it, they push harder. One morning, my access badge failed at the east gate. I stood waiting for clearance and 2 MPs arrived to escort me. My bag was searched. My room inspected. The excuse? Unmatched inventory tags in the February manifest. I watched them unzip my mattress lining. They didn't find the box. That night, I found a red mark on my locker. A line. Diagonal. In chalk. A warning. Or maybe a countdown. I took a breath. It was almost time. I wrote one more report, password locked, and sent it to a dead drop link to a single name, Miles Thurman. The only man who had ever whispered Ghost 6 aloud without fear. Former director of Spectre Division. Retired. Thought dead. But not gone. In the message I wrote. They're running trials again. She wasn't the first. I'm done watching. 3 weeks. I didn't know if he'd read it. Didn't know if he'd do anything. But I'd done enough silence. I set the countdown. And on the morning General Kane arrived at Falcon Ridge, I stood alone in the center of the training quad, 152 trainees behind me, the frost thick on the concrete, the air motionless. And then Dalton called my name. Loud. Like a verdict. You are not worthy of this uniform. Take it off. Dalton's words echoed across the formation like a slap. They weren't addressed to the trainees. They were for me. Alone. Delivered with venom in every syllable. I didn't move. Around me, 152 trainees remained at attention, some confused, some too new to question. The sun had barely cleared the horizon, light still slanting cold through the open square. Frost steamed off shoulders. No one breathed. Dalton closed the distance between us, his boots slow and deliberate. One hand on his belt, the other curled into a fist. He stopped inches from my face. This base doesn't need contractors who think they're warriors, he said, loud enough for the tower platform to hear. You've lied. You've disrupted operations. You've inserted yourself into classified lanes without clearance. You are a fraud. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I looked past him at the frost catching in the mesh railings, at the faint silhouette of an old man watching from the upper command level. Dalton reached forward and yanked the chevron patch from my chest. The Velcro ripped like a gunshot. He threw it to the ground at my feet. Take off the jacket, he ordered. My hands moved then, not out of obedience, but because the moment required it. I unzipped my jacket slowly and laid it across the concrete beside the chevron. The cold bit into my skin. The gray tank top beneath clung to my ribs. A faded tattoo stretched from shoulder to spine. It read like a battlefield. 31 names. Some curving upward, some horizontal, coordinates inked like scars. One at the center, Lucas Kane. Dalton didn't see it at first. But someone else did. Clatter. The sound of metal on metal rang across the quad. A thermos had dropped from the command rail. It rolled to a stop near the edge. Everyone turned. The old man standing above, wool coat, gloves, VA pin, leaned forward, one hand still hovering where the thermos had fallen. His eyes never left me. He spoke quietly at first. Then louder. That's not just a contractor. That's Ghost 6. The silence broke like a dam. Heads turned. Murmurs swept the edge of the formation. The name had not been spoken in years, not in public, not even in whispers. He stepped forward against the rail, voice steady now. And she saved more lives than Dalton ever commanded. Dalton's face turned a shade darker. Who the hell are you? But the man ignored him. He reached into his coat and pulled out a satellite phone. Get General Kane, he said into the receiver. Now. We've made a terrible mistake. He didn't blink. His words were ice. Dalton sputtered. There's no record of her. No clearance. She's admin. And that's when another voice, lower but far more dangerous, spoke from the platform stairs. She's Ghost 6. It was Heller, Chief Warrant Officer. Eyes sharp, jaw locked. He had come from the shadows, from the corner where ghosts live until they're called. He nodded to the man with the phone. Miles Thurman, he said quietly. Spectre Division. Level 7 retired. Dalton froze. Because now he knew what he was standing on wasn't a podium. It was a detonator. The formation was shifting now, some trainees adjusting, eyes darting. The tattoo on my back was now visible to everyone. Someone whispered, that's real. Those are the coordinates from I heard another voice from above. Captain Dalton. A man stepped onto the platform. His voice was low, even, unmistakable. Graveled by command. General Malcolm Kane. The cold seemed to evaporate. Dalton straightened unconsciously, trying to regain control. Sir, he barked. This contractor is... Silence, Kane said. He stepped down the metal stairs slowly, eyes on me. He came to a stop just feet from where I stood, still in my tank top, the tattoo exposed, my jacket on the ground. He looked at the name at the center of my back. Lucas Kane. He didn't speak right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. Rough. My son died in Operation Dustfall, he said. That's what they told me. I didn't speak. He looked at me. But someone brought him back. A long silence passed. Then Thurman walked to his side and leaned in. She didn't just bring him back. She held the perimeter alone for 16 hours. Refused extraction. Took a round through the shoulder. She disappeared because she didn't want the fallout. Didn't want his death to become a soundbite. Kane's eyes never left mine. Captain Dalton, he said, turning only slightly. You are relieved of command. Effective immediately. Dalton's mouth opened. Then closed. He tried again. There's no record, Exactly, Kane said. And that was the end of it. Dalton stood there for a long moment, stripped not by order, but by truth. He stepped back without a word. Kane turned to the formation. Dismissed. And 152 trainees, without understanding why, saluted me as they turned and marched away. The wind rose. I bent down, picked up my jacket, and walked toward the edge of the quad, my back straight. Ghost 6 was no longer hidden. And that meant the mission had truly begun. I left the quad with frost clinging to my boots and 31 names still warm on my back. General Kane didn't stop me. No press follow-up. No public commendation. Just the quiet weight of a truth too large for soundbites. I didn't return to Logistics B. I packed my room that night, 4 items in a bag, the box from beneath the mattress, and 1 photo. Then I walked to the perimeter checkpoint under a sky going soft with dusk. No farewell. No send-off. Just the slow lift of the barrier gate and the echo of boots fading into silence. The next day, the orders came down from Kane's office. Captain Dalton, suspended pending investigation. Charges: abuse of authority, falsified training records, obstruction of operational oversight. The trainees were reassigned. Fielding's file was reopened. But I wasn't there to see it. I took a room in a small coastal town 3 hours east. Concrete walls, no questions asked. Paid in cash. I let my body collapse for the first time in months. For a while that was enough. But justice isn't a single act. It's a commitment. A quiet, relentless one. And the silence didn't stay silent. Fielding's mother reached out again, this time through a secure channel. She didn't ask what happened. She just said thank you. I think Naomi would have liked you. I stared at the screen for a long time. That same week, Heller sent me an encrypted drive. It contained 12 names. Recruits flagged under Falcon Ridge's non-resilience index. Buried outcomes. Quiet exits. No contact. They weren't just statistics. They were echoes. I began to piece together the network. Not a charity. Not a whistleblower group. Something precise. Surgical. A unit not for combat, but for truth. I called it the Kane Fielding Alliance. The name wasn't for show. It was memory. One for the man I brought home. one for the girl they left behind. The Alliance didn't take donations. It didn't seek headlines. It operated in the gray spaces where military justice often fails and oversight fears its own shadow. We linked veterans and their families with encrypted channels to submit evidence, provided pro bono legal access, partnered with investigative reviewers. No filters. No chain of command spin. If you were buried, we unburied you. We weren't crusaders. We were cartographers of hidden grief. 2 months in, we exposed 6 training fatalities that had been misclassified as voluntary discharge. Within a year, we had 3 case referrals pushed through to military judiciary review. It wasn't revenge. It was balance. I never went back to Falcon Ridge. But word traveled. They said the new commander walked with a copy of Fielding's note in his breast pocket, that the trainees now had a hotline routed, unofficially, to a burner phone I kept in my kitchen drawer. Most never used it, but a few did. And one of them, Maya, changed everything. She was 19. Quiet. Too tall for her weight class, arms ropey with new muscle, voice barely audible when she called me the first time. They don't see me, she said. I try, but it's like I'm already gone. I didn't promise her it would be easy. I didn't promise her anything, but I watched. And when she showed up on the west wall of the training circuit 3rd week into the cycle, I was there. From the shadows of a supply hangar behind the burn barrel, I watched her run full tilt at the wall. She failed. Slipped halfway. Hit hard. Laid still. No one helped her. She rose. Climbed again. Made it. I exhaled. That night, I opened the box again. The tattoo ink was freshened every 3 months by my own hand. The names never changed. But the center of the compass had always been one line, Lucas Kane. Now I added a second. Maya. Survivor. She wasn't dead. But survival deserves space too. Sometimes that's how you break the cycle. Not by shouting louder than the noise, but by planting something no one else can uproot. The Kane-Fielding alliance grew slowly. That was the point. It wasn't built for speed. It was built for permanence. For the quiet places, the military towns where stories disappeared into chain-link fences and locked filing cabinets. Where trauma wore uniforms and answers wore camouflage. We didn't advertise. We listened. The first base to acknowledge our inquiries was in Nevada. Then one in Missouri. Both denied official misconduct, but offered internal review, options they'd never permitted before. It was movement. And sometimes that's all justice needs to begin. I never put my name on anything. But word got around. They called me Ghost 6 in the files. Unconfirmed source. Unknown operative. The ones who knew didn't speak. The ones who didn't assumed it was a myth. That's how it should be. One afternoon, 3 years after Falcon Ridge, I sat across from a man in a desert diner, Mark Heller. He looked older. Grayer. Carried a prosthetic now. Left wrist gone. No explanation given. We didn't ask each other much. He slid a folder across the table. What's this? I asked. The Dalton file, he said. Final ruling. I hesitated. I'm not sure I want to see it. You should. I opened it slowly. Inside, 3 pages. Formal dismissal. Dishonorable discharge. Stripped pension. A classified annex listed involuntary casualties under command environment. I closed it. What happened to him? I asked. Private security. Corporate work. Tried to reinvent himself, Heller said, sipping his coffee. Didn't stick. No one trusted him. He disappeared. Good, I said. Not really, Heller replied. Broken men break others. But sometimes they just break alone. We sat in silence. The waitress refilled our coffee. A song from the 60s played on a dusty jukebox in the corner. You think it made a difference? He asked. I looked out the window. A woman in BDUs was helping a boy out of a truck. He was small, maybe 9, holding a certificate. I don't know, I said. Maybe not the way I imagined. But you kept going. Because someone has to. He nodded. I've got one more case for you, he said. If you're willing. I didn't say yes. I just waited. She called last week. Widow. Husband was pushed through a non-combat discharge after a psych eval went sideways. Turns out he'd witnessed 2 hazing deaths. Filed a report. Then suddenly he was the problem. What's she asking for? Nothing. Just truth. I nodded once. Send it through. He didn't smile. Neither did I. But something settled between us. an understanding. Not all ghosts disappear. Some of them just walk alongside the living. After he left, I sat there for a long time. Then I pulled out the same black case I always carried. Opened the lid. Inside, the needle, the ink, the compass. I added another line. Not a name this time. Just 3 words. We are watching. The alliance went quiet again after that. It wasn't silence. Just rest. Some of the names we saved went on to serve again, with clarity this time. Others left the service. Built homes. Families. Lives. Maya became a field instructor. She wore the alliance patch on the inside of her sleeve. Not regulation, but earned. She called me sometimes. Short messages. You still running? Always. You still angry? Not always. We didn't say much else. That was enough. Then one fall morning a letter arrived. Official stationery. Black ink. Stamped with the emblem of the Department of Defense. It was from General Kane. A single paragraph. He never stopped talking about you, Lucas. Even when it hurt him. Even when they told him not to. He said if anything ever happened, someone would finish what he couldn't. You did. You were the last good thing he believed in. I folded the letter once. Placed it beside my oldest logbook. That evening I drove out to Granite Falls Cemetery. Not for ceremony. Not for closure. Just for presence. The sun was low. Wind brushing the grass. Rows of simple markers, each one a silence too deep for words. I found his grave. Lucas Kane. 1985 to 2010. A small bronze marker. No quote. No flourish. I crouched beside it. From my pocket I pulled a coin. It was silver black, burnished by time. One side, the Ghost 6 sigil. The other, the alliance mark. No rank. No flag. Just 2 interlocked hands. One pulling the other from a cliff. I placed it on the stone. Gently. He told me to finish it, I said. Behind me, boots crunched on gravel. General Kane stepped beside me. Hands in his coat. Eyes soft. He thought no one would believe his mission mattered, he said. I looked up. But we made it undeniable. He nodded. Then silence. Finally I spoke. Sometimes it's not the ones shouting orders who protect the truth. He looked at me. Waiting. It's the ones who carry it in silence. We stood there until the wind changed. No photos. No press. Just memory. And for the first time in years I felt something lift. Not the burden, but the weight of carrying it alone. Granite Falls Cemetery grew quiet as the sun slid behind the ridge, the sky folding into violet and ash. General Kane remained beside me for a while, saying nothing more. He didn't need to. His silence was not avoidance, it was reverence. For his son. For the fallen. For those who live afterward and carry the echo. When he finally turned to leave, his parting words were simple. Thank you, Elena. He didn't salute. He didn't offer command. He just left the space intact, unbroken by ritual. I remained. I sat beside the grave for a long time, knees pulled up, arms wrapped around them like a soldier at rest in the field. Not mourning, not even remembering, just being. When the first stars began to show, I took out the small logbook I still carried. Leather-bound, edges worn. Inside were names, dates, coordinates. Not for missions, for people. At the back was a page marked only by initials. NF, Uksit, RJ. Maya's name had been added now. Not because she died, but because she rose. The quiet ones matter most. I closed the book, slid it back into my coat and stood. The coin I'd left on Lucas Kane's stone remained still in the breeze. I walked away with nothing in my hands, but I carried everything that mattered. As I reached the edge of the cemetery, a truck passed on the road. A boy leaned from the window and waved without knowing why. I waved back. He disappeared around the bend. A new world waiting. Behind me, the wind stirred the grass in soft swells. The rows of stones whispered their own language, nothing loud, nothing dramatic. Just a presence. A promise. That we don't vanish. We don't erase. We remember. We protect. And when needed, we return. In silence. In resolve. In the shape of those who will never let the story end.